Picture yourself heading to the gym before you've eaten anything at all. No breakfast, no pre-workout drink, no quick handful of nuts on the way out the door, just you, an empty stomach, and whatever your body decides to do next. For most people, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. We've been told for years that you need fuel before you move, that skipping food before training will leave you weak, shaky, and useless. But here's a question worth sitting with. What if that belief is mostly wrong? What if your body is actually capable of training harder, burning more fat, and even shielding your muscle when you exercise without a single calorie in your system? In this video, we're going to unpack exactly what unfolds inside you when fasting and exercise meet. We'll look at why some people feel clearer and more powerful when they train hungry, which kinds of movement suit a fasted state and which ones fight against it, and how to handle your training once you start eating again. Quick reminder before we dive in. This is educational, not medical advice. Bodies vary enormously, so if you have any underlying conditions, check with your doctor before experimenting with fasted training. With that out of the way, let's follow the science. To grasp why training on empty can work so well, you first have to understand where your energy actually comes from. Your body banks fuel in two main accounts. The first is glycogen, which is just glucose packed away inside your liver and your muscle tissue. Think of it as the cash in your wallet, easy to reach and quick to spend. A typical adult holds somewhere around 400 to 500 grams of it, roughly 1,600 to 2,000 calories worth, enough to carry you for about 12 to 24 hours depending on how active you are. The second account is body fat, and this is where it gets fascinating. Even a fairly lean person walks around with tens of thousands of calories locked in fat tissue, enough to last weeks. It's a massive reserve sitting quietly in the background, waiting for permission to be used. So here's the catch. Your body would rather spend the cash than touch the savings. Burning glycogen is quicker and metabolically cheaper, so as long as it's available, your system keeps reaching for it and leaves your fat largely untouched. Now here's something that genuinely surprises people. The meal you eat right before a workout doesn't really power that workout. Not in any direct sense. When you swallow food, it lingers in your stomach for 2 to 5 hours while it's broken down, then passes into the small intestine where the nutrients trickle into your bloodstream over the following 4 to 12 hours. That means your breakfast isn't fueling your morning session. The energy driving it came from yesterday's food. The lift you feel after eating before training comes from hormones and anticipation, not from the calories themselves. Your body senses incoming fuel and primes you to move, but the actual energy is still being pulled from storage. Now ask what happens when you go 12 to 16 hours without eating. Glycogen starts to thin out, and as it does, your body is forced to pivot toward fat. As fat breaks down, your liver manufactures ketones, an alternative fuel your muscles and brain can both run on. This is where fasted training earns its reputation. There's a quality called metabolic flexibility, the ability to glide smoothly between burning sugar and burning fat depending on what's around. The trouble is that if you graze all day, your body never has to find the fat-burning gear, so it gets rusty at it. Fasted exercise drills that gear repeatedly until the switch becomes effortless, leaving your metabolism more adaptable over time. And that's only the opening act. Let's get specific about what changes inside you. First, fat burning climbs sharply. With no fresh glucose arriving, insulin stays low. And low insulin is the signal that frees fat to leave your fat cells and become fuel. A meta-analysis in the British Journal of Nutrition that pooled 27 studies across 273 participants landed on a clear verdict. Aerobic exercise done fasted produces meaningfully greater fat oxidation than the same exercise done after a meal, with some research pointing to 20 to 30% more fat burned. The logic is simple. Eating spikes insulin, and insulin acts like a lock on your fat cells. Remove the meal, and you remove the lock. Second, growth hormone surges. Released by the pituitary gland in your brain, growth hormone does two jobs that matter here. It helps repair and build muscle, and it tells fat cells to surrender their contents. What's remarkable is that fasting and exercise each raise growth hormone on their own, and stacking them amplifies the effect. Research in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism tracked healthy men across different conditions and found exercise pushing growth hormone past 10 nanograms per milliliter, while extended fasting roughly tripled baseline levels throughout the day. Other studies have logged increases of 5 to 14 times baseline in both sexes. The practical upshot is that training fasted hits growth hormone from two directions at once, which is a major reason people often hold onto or even gain muscle while shedding fat. Your body is protective. When food is scarce, it has no interest in cannibalizing the muscle it needs to hunt and survive, so it raises growth hormone to defend it. Third, insulin sensitivity sharpens. Sensitivity describes how readily your cells respond to insulin's instructions. When it's high, a small amount of insulin moves glucose efficiently. When it's low, a condition called insulin resistance, your body has to pump out more and more to get the same result, which over years opens the door to serious metabolic problems. Fasted exercise helps on both fronts. Working muscle pulls in glucose even without much insulin present, and fasting already keeps insulin low to begin with. Combine the two and your body becomes far better at managing glucose on less insulin, an improvement that lingers for hours after you've racked the weights and compounds powerfully over the long run. Fourth, mental clarity rises. Plenty of people describe feeling unusually sharp and focused training on empty, and this isn't placebo. Part of it traces to BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that supports the growth of nerve cells and underpins learning and memory. Both fasting and exercise lift BDNF, and together they may push it higher still. Ketones contribute too. They cross into the brain easily and feed it directly, and the brain runs cleanly on them, sometimes seeming to favor them. There's also norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that rises during fasting and drives alertness, the same chemistry that snaps you awake when something demands your full attention. An evolutionary lens ties all this together. For most of human history, there were no fridges and no shops. Our ancestors often woke hungry and had to track down food before they could eat. A body that turned foggy and feeble the moment it ran low on food would have failed to hunt and failed to survive. The ones who grew sharper and steadier while hungry were the ones who ate and passed on their genes. You're still running that ancient code. Functioning well without food isn't a glitch, it's a built-in feature. Quick question while we're here. Do you train before or after eating? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious which camp you're in. Now let's get practical, because not every workout fits a fasted state equally. Start with low to moderate aerobic work, things like brisk walking, easy jogging, gentle cycling, or swimming, the pace where you can still talk in full sentences. This is the sweet spot for fasted training. At lower intensities, your body leans heavily on fat and barely touches glycogen, so you can keep going for a long stretch without hitting a wall. If you're new to this, begin right here with a morning walk or an unhurried ride before breakfast and watch how you respond. Next, high-intensity anaerobic work, including sprint intervals, all-out skipping, and hard HIIT that leaves you gasping. This kind of effort runs on glycogen, and after 12 to 16 hours fasted, those stores are already partly drained, so you may feel flat. There's reassuring news, though. One study found that after 4 weeks adapting to a very low carbohydrate intake, participants held their high-intensity performance steady once their bodies learned to operate on less glycogen. Adaptation is the key. Don't leap straight into brutal intervals fasted. Build up over several weeks. Finally, resistance training. You absolutely can lift fasted, and many do it well. Each heavy set spends some glycogen, but the elevated growth hormone helps guard your muscle through the session. One caveat matters here. Lifting tears tiny fissures in your muscle fibers, which is the whole point since your body rebuilds them stronger. That rebuild needs protein as raw material. If you train fasted and then keep fasting for many more hours, you've left the repair crew without supplies. So aim to eat a protein-rich meal within a few hours of lifting, even if the workout itself was fasted. The simple rule for all of this: start with easy aerobic work, progress to moderate, and only fold in HIIT or weights after weeks of adaptation, always listening to your body. But fasted training isn't for everyone. Skip it if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, since your nutritional demands are elevated. Avoid it if you have a history of disordered eating, where it could reignite harmful patterns, and work with a professional instead. Steer clear if you have type 1 diabetes or use insulin because blood sugar control gets genuinely dangerous, and the same caution applies to chronic kidney disease where electrolyte handling is already strained. If you're underweight, you lack the reserves to spare. If your medication must be taken with food, eat regardless. And if both fasting and exercise are new to you, don't start them on the same day. That's too much change at once. Even when it suits you, certain signals mean stop immediately. Severe dizziness that won't settle with rest, a pounding or racing heart that persists after you stop, confusion or muddled thinking, weakness that wrecks exercises you'd normally breeze through, or nausea. The rule is straightforward. If any of these don't ease within 10 to 15 minutes of resting and drinking water, end the session, eat something light, and see a doctor if it lingers. One more piece: hydration and electrolytes. Fasting drains water and minerals faster than usual because low insulin prompts your kidneys to shed more sodium and water. The resulting fatigue, cramps, headaches, and dizziness are easy to blame on fasting itself, when really you just need fluid and salt. Drink generously before, during, and after, and add a pinch of salt or an electrolyte mix to your water. Nothing fancy required. Say your fasted session went well. What now? How you train as you start eating again matters just as much. In the first 24 to 48 hours of refeeding, your digestion is waking up. Insulin rises with your first meal, and energy is being routed toward processing food. Keep training light here: walking, yoga, stretching, mobility, not personal records. Across the next window, roughly 48 to 72 hours, your glycogen is steadily refilling, a process that takes a day or two depending on your intake. Your insulin sensitivity is also elevated now, so this is an ideal moment to refuel with quality carbohydrates, and you can begin nudging intensity up with light to moderate resistance work. By around 72 hours, your glycogen is largely restored, your hormones have settled, and you can return to normal training, though don't try to claw back missed sessions with one heroic effort. Ease in over a workout or two, and on protein, after a fast your body is primed to build, with insulin sensitivity high and growth hormones staying elevated for a day or two. That's a perfect repair window, but it needs materials. Prioritize quality protein in your first meals. Eggs, fish, meat, legumes, or yogurt all do the job, and spread it across the day rather than dumping it into one sitting, since your body can only use so much at once. Pulling it all together, training fasted isn't reckless when it's done thoughtfully. Your body was engineered to run well without constant food. Handled properly, fasted exercise can meaningfully raise fat burning, boost the growth hormone that protects muscle and mobilizes fat, sharpen insulin sensitivity for long-term metabolic health, and clear your mind through ketones and BDNF. The whole game is matching the workout to your fasted state, starting gently, respecting the warning signs, staying hydrated, and refueling with real protein when you break the fast. That pre-workout meal you thought was powering your training? It mostly wasn't. The fuel came from yesterday, from your glycogen, and from the fat you've been carrying all along. Training fasted simply hands your body a reason to reach for those reserves and teaches your metabolism to stay flexible. Just as our ancestors proved across countless hungry mornings, your body already knows exactly what to do. So here's my question for you. Some coaches insist you should never train on empty. Others swear it's the only way that works. Now that you've seen the science, where do you land? Overrated, underrated, or just right? Tell me below. If you know someone still wondering whether to eat before they train, send this their way. It might shift how they think. And if this gave you a clearer picture of your own body, subscribe so you don't miss what's next, where we'll walk through what unfolds in your first 24 hours of fasting. Until then, look after yourself.